皆さんこんにちは。今日の動画ってね、ちょっと違うんですけれども、こっちにあるように最近一時帰国した時に早稲田大学で、英語で講演をしてほしいっていうお願いがあって、本当に英語でその今までの10年ぐらいっていうのかな、どんな経験、研究してきましたかとか、どういう研究をして、どういう結果が出てとか、大学院生はこんなことをして、教員の時はこんなことをしてっていう、本当に研究発表っていうのを大学院生とか、教員の方とか、研究員の方にしたことがあるんです。で、何人かね、大学生の方もいましたけれども、だからスポーツ心理学の研究に興味があるとか、どういうふうに研究が立てられたのかに興味があるという研究の話をね、英語で聞いてみたいという場合はね、今日の動画っていうね、楽しんでいただけるんじゃないかなと思うので、よかったらね、皆さん見てみてください。で、質疑応答に関して言うとやっぱすごい長くなっちゃうんで、でも30分日本語と英語で、質疑応答って結構バラバラにあったんですけれども、それっていうのはね、概要欄とかコメント欄に質疑応答だけのね、限定公開っていうのかな、限定動画っていうのを公開してるので、よかったらね、そちらもご覧ください。最初の自己紹介以外っていうのは本当にもう研究の話っていうのも英語でしてるだけですけれどもね、少しはね、参考になると嬉しいです。それでは皆さんまた。
Alright, so thank you so much for coming. So today I'm going to give you a little bit of my research about maybe like 55 minutes. Then I'm happy to take any questions you may have. But the title of my topic is Unpacking the Mind-Body Connection. So this is how my talk is going to be today. So I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. Then I'm going to give you the research on how psychological factors influence the way we perform and the way we learn. And specifically, I'm going to talk about how giving choice or autonomy influence motor skills and how expectation, like for example, if you expect to do well, how does that influence, the way you perform and the way you learn motor skills. And this past 2 years, my research is a little bit off from autonomy or expectation. So self-talk or attentional focus is, I would say, my main research this past 2 years. Then I'm going to only one slide to basically conclude my talk. So a little bit of myself. So I'm from the University of Hawaii at Hilo. So it's pretty rural area. I'm not from Honolulu. I'm not from big city. This is my second year as an assistant professor at University of Hawaii at Hilo for the Department of Kinesiology and Exercise Sciences since August 2022. And some of the classes that I have been teaching are sports psychology, which I'm sure you guys know, and motor learning and anatomical kinesiology. Then my study abroad journey started from here, Springfield College. It's pretty small private school, but I was there for 2 years to study sports psychology. So while I was a grad student, I worked as a sports psychologist, working with other, university around this area. Then I also became men and women's head coach for only 1 year. But just to let you know, I also worked as a men's assistant coach when I was a graduate student. That basically allowed me to study for free because in the US, if you work as an assistant coach, you actually don't need to pay for tuition. Then you actually get paid to go to grad school, which was great. Then my PhD, I went to University of Nevada, Las Vegas for 3 years to work with Dr. Gabrielle Wolf. I'm sure you know, some of you know her because she has done a lot of research in the area of motor learning. Then I also worked as a researcher there in Czech Republic at Palacký University, Olomouc. Then this is my first academic position at Penn State. That was 6 years ago. So I was there for 4 years as an assistant professor. Then while I was working as assistant professor, I was approached by NASA to be a grant evaluator for 2 years because they actually did a lot of research in, I would say, related to sports. Because if you go to the moon, come back from moon, I guess there are a lot of physical training that they have to do. So then some of my research got, picked up by NASA. And same thing for Google, I worked for 2 years, only part-time. Then now I'm there in Hawaii. So this is, I would say, kind of my past 12 years. But, people who don't know me tell me, you're smart, okay? But I have to say, I used to play tennis for 11 years until my college graduation, so I didn't really study. So my English wasn't quite there about 12 years ago. So then I know the university I went to recently getting really, I don't want to say popular, but famous in not a good way. So I went there for 4 years. Now let's talk about research. Specifically, I'm going to talk about how giving choice or allowing performers to choose certain aspect of practice condition. How does that influence motor skills? But before I'm going to talk about, I guess, my research area. So I just want to kind of briefly give you the idea, but I think now, folks who are here, studying sports psychomotor learning, this is maybe, I would say, the review, but what sports psychologists want to really know is, how can we actually enhance motor performance like right now? But when it comes to motor learning, how can we actually see the long-term effect? How can we learn motor skills? Then today I'm going to talk about studies like related to this. Then if you think about motor skills or sports psychology, you think about these basic skills, basic tasks. Then, if you become, somewhat good, you probably think of, something like this. But because, if you become, say, somewhat old, there's a chance you can't walk. You need to learn how to walk again. So in the US, I think same as, Japan as well, motor learning in the field of health science is big. So that's why I think that when it comes to motor learning, it's kind of big in the US. Then now let's talk about my research. So let me ask you this. If you can get cake or apple, which one would you like to eat? So I'll give you 10 seconds. You can just pick one of the two. Then I'm going to ask you to raise your hand. Which one do you like? In 5 seconds. So who likes apple? Okay. Who likes cake? Okay. So there are a lot of, probably factors that comes in for you to decide. Maybe if you focus more on like health related thing, then maybe apple is good for you. But if you just simply like cake, you don't care about calorie, maybe cake is good for you. So if I don't ask you, I'm not gonna know what you like. But if I ask you, I can guarantee that I'm going to give you what you like. Then, asking is really powerful than maybe how we usually think of. So, and my research is kind of involving how asking influences the way we perform and learn. Again, this is also power of autonomy. Then let's get into the very first study that basically talks about, I would say, how autonomy support or, giving learners choice influence learning outcome. Autonomy support benefit motor learning. Anybody know self-controlled practice? Okay, maybe it looks like less than half. Okay, so let me kind of share with you how study is usually conducted in related to self-controlled practice. And this is a very first study to really test how, I would say, choice or autonomy support influence learning outcomes. So that was about 30 years ago. Okay, so and task is underhand toss to a target. 2 groups, self-controlled practice group and controlled practice group. Then to kind of give you some idea, assuming you're actually going to participate in this study, you're going to throw a ball using your non-dominant hand. Then here is the, I would say, kicker. So if you throw a ball, you can't see where you hit it because you're going to use like some sort of, eye mask or so. Then you probably request where you hit it, right? Because you can't see it. And assume you're going to perform 8 trials. Then you can only request 3 times. After the first try, maybe you want to see where you hit it. Or maybe after the second try. Or maybe after the 5th, 7th. But I'll give you about 10 or 15 seconds. Think about where you want to receive feedback. You're going to perform 8, but 3 times you can get feedback right after you perform. Okay, so think about where you want to get feedback because people have preference. 10 seconds left. 5 seconds left. Anybody want to share when you think you want to get feedback? You can get 3 times out of 8. Anybody?
First row, third row, then sixth row.
Okay, so after 3rd and 4th and 6th, okay? Any other options? Do you have something?
I'm thinking, definitely, for me, definitely the first, probably 4th and the 6th.
Okay, so that's actually the option that I often hear. People want to get like right after the first one, how did I do? So that's what I often hear. But again, people have preference. But the difference between self-control practice and control practice is if you are in the control practice group, you get to choose when you want to receive feedback based on the timing you want. But control practice feedback group don't choose. They basically get based on the pair, in the self-control feedback group. The question is, does basically choosing when people want to get feedback enhance learning outcome? So that's allowing individuals to decide on the timing and the frequency of feedback, performance feedback enhance learning? And answer was yes. So again, that was 30 years ago. And since then, we see research like this a lot of time. Then I'm not gonna spend a lot of time, but say just pick one study, not just related to feedback, but something else. The use of assistive devices. And this study was involved, persons with Parkinson's disease. So they have a lot of, I would say movement-related issues. And task was balanced, and again, 2 different groups. Then again, same thing. So if you can, kind of see the picture right side, this is really difficult task. So balance platform. Then the goal is try to keep the platform as horizontal as possible. That's it. But it's difficult. Then you see the paw. So if you want to use paw, just for you to get used to the task, you can. Then again, the idea is if you are in the self-control practice feedback group, they get to choose when they like to use. They could maybe use 3 times. They could maybe use a little bit more. Again, they can decide the timing and also the frequency. The control feedback, they don't get to choose. Then what they found is this is a time imbalance. That means longer means better. They had a better, I would say performance to step on the platform, before hitting one of the edge. Then what they found is people who were able to choose basically, could stay a little bit longer. And confidence goes up, anxiety goes down. Kind of makes sense because you can't have confidence going up and anxiety going up. It should be the other way around. Then next one is, what if the participants had a small choice, no feedback, no use of assistive device, somewhat subtle, really little, but how does the little choice sort of influence motor skills? And that was about 10 years ago. This is the very first study to kind of test the idea how choice that's not closely related to the task, but how does that influence the learning outcome? Then say you're going to learn this task, golf putting task, 2 different groups. Then if you get to choose one preferred color, just pick one color that you think you like. How about I'll give you 10 seconds. Orange, yellow, blue. You're going to learn golf putting task. You pick one color that you like. Okay? Anybody who's gonna pick orange? Yellow? Okay? Blue? Okay? So again, people have some preference. Okay? Then what they tested was how about people who actually decide to choose color, preferred color? Can they actually learn motor skills? So they use accuracy score, just like the lab you have. It's exactly same setting. And what they found was this is a putting score. So people who are able to choose the color learn motor skills more effectively. Choice group. Then this is one of the studies that I was able to get involved. Today, I think I'm going to share with you maybe around 10 studies. And this is just one of the 10. The task is throw in a lasso. I'm just going to kind of share with you the task.
Just try to note the point where our loop is starting to try to rotate and pull out of our hand a little bit, and that generally happens when your top strand
So let's
starts
go a
to
little
turn
bit
over
forward.
so that it helps bring the tip around.
So basically, this is the, I said, the demonstration video to kind of give you like how to perform. And he's gonna perform right now. Oops.
So what we're going to do here is pretty simple technique. The main thing is practice.
It's not simple. It's really difficult. Looks easy, it's not. Okay, so but we wanted to pick tasks that's really difficult. Then what we did was again choice group and also I would say control group. Then can you see the little like white thing mat? So the choice group participants were able to pick the preferred color. So they perform and they could change the color of the mat. And if they want to switch again, they can. They can change anytime they want to change. But if you think about it, it doesn't really matter what color people pick. But we wanted to test if giving a choice that's not related to the task, but how does that influence learning outcome? And what we found was people who were able to choose the color actually learned more effectively. They increased the accuracy score. Then after we added one more group to test a little bit differently. So one group was being able to choose preferred color. Choice isn't related to the task. And second group, we actually had a video demonstration group. So if people wanted to see the video again to learn, they could. So they get to choose when they like to see the video, maybe twice or 3 times if they want to throughout the practice. And we were not quite sure what group is going to be the best. And what we found was this is the accuracy score. So higher means better. So just to make it very simple. And again, choice math group and choice video group. And what we found was when they perform, on the retention day, that was 72 hours later, it's pretty much the same. What we were thinking was, maybe choice that's related to the task, it's a more meaningful, but it wasn't. So what we concluded was maybe it doesn't really matter what option we give, but people appreciate the option they have. Then now, let's talk about motivation to exercise. So, in the US, people are big, okay? So, I'm sure he knows this, okay? Pennsylvania isn't doing great, okay? I think the obesity rate isn't great, okay? But so, this is a really unique study. So, 2 different groups, choice group and control group. Then you could see 4 different exercises, lunges, jumping jacks, bear crawl, medicine ball throws. Then choice group got 2 questions before performing 4 exercises, and control group only got 1 option. So what order would you like to do today? So you can just think of the order that you think you're going to pick. Maybe you're going to pick the one that's somewhat easy. Maybe you're going to pick the one that's maybe challenging first, because you want to go challenging. In the end, it's kind of easy. I don't know, okay? But choice group chose the order. Then they were asked, how many sets and repetitions would you like to do today at the lab? Then for the control group, they didn't get the first question. The order was predetermined. Then they were asked, how many sets and repetitions would you like to do? It's very simple. Then basically, researcher observed what they say, I'm going to do this amount. Then researcher was just seeing they actually complete. Then once they complete, they left. That was the whole experiment, okay? Then what they found that people who requested the order, then say, I want to do this amount of sets and repetition. They requested more. Then they did more. Then they left. So, choice increased the exercise engagement. And that's really meaningful because in the US, letting people to do exercise is very difficult. And now let's get into motor performance. This is actually my PhD work. Anybody who's a PhD student here? Only one, two. Okay, great. So this is my PhD work. I'm going to kind of talk about 3 experiments. I say about 10 minutes. I practiced yesterday, so it was 10 minutes. And this is my study. But I saw this experiment before I'm going to conduct my, I guess, dissertation studies. But when boxers get to decide how they like to punch, as opposed to be punching in predetermined order, they had higher punching, I would say, speed, like punching velocity, and those higher impact force. So people could punch, I guess, stronger when they have a choice. Then I'm going to talk about 3 experiments. The one is related to force production. The next one is related to running economy. Then third is related to muscular efficiency. Then let's talk about the first one. So this is my first experiment that I did for my PhD, autonomy facilitate repeated maximum force production. That was done in Czech Republic. Then task was very simple. So perform repeated maximum force production, only 8 times. Then I'm sure you have tried this one before, because in Japan, I think if you're high school or junior high or elementary school, I'm sure you try at least 1 time at school. In the US, it's not popular. Europe, it's popular, I would say, popular than, I would say, US. But so the way we basically conducted this experiment was for the pre-test, assume you're actually going to participate in this study, I'm going to ask you to perform with the dominant hand 1 time, your max. Then 20 seconds, then I'm going to ask you to perform using your left hand, or I guess your non-dominant hand. Then choice group get to choose the remaining 6 with limitation of 3 dominant hand, 3 non-dominant hand. Then again, control group is basically paired. If you happen to participate in this study, what order do you think you prefer? Anybody want to share? What order you think you're going to choose? That's not the most popular order. Anybody? How do you want to complete?
Dominant, non-dominant, then dominant,
Okay.
non-dominant, dominant, lastly non-dominant.
Okay, any others?
I'm the other way around. Non-dominant, dominant, non-dominant, dominant.
Okay.
Dominant.
So these are the popular option, but I think 1 out of 16 or 1 out of 20, I think he went dominant, 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 non-dominant, no. But I mean, if you think about it, why you want to do 3 times? But people have a weird reason, but that's the most popular option. You want to go, 1 by 1. Then what we found was, again, we matched the similar sort of power on the first try, but for the control group participant, they slightly dropped a little bit. For the choice group, they didn't increase, but they were able to at least sustain the level of force production. Then, control group participants showed consistent decline in force across trial, and the way we concluded this study was providing performers the opportunity for small choice, in this case, the order of hands, help them sustain force level across repeated maximum effort attempts. Then now let's talk about my second study. Personally, I really like this study. So this study was picked up by the runners. I really don't know, but it's kind of popular magazine among runners. I didn't know anything about this, I would say, magazine, but they wanted to feature my study, so that was, I thought, nice. And this one involves, I say, physiological measurement. The title is The Autonomy Enhances Running Efficiency. So what I wanted to test was, how does autonomy or choice influence from physiological aspect? Then, this is the typical exercise physiology lab. I didn't really know how to use these devices. I asked my friend's PhD exercise physiology student, he was on board and I worked with him. And day one, the task was great exhaustive exercise test, basically VO2 max test. So you're going to run until you can't run anymore. It's not fun, not fun, okay? But that will give me basically the value, basically what stamina you have. The longer you run, that means your sub-maximum running speed is going to be faster. And day two, it's 20 minutes sub-maximum run. He's my research assistant, day one, day two, now he's PT, okay? Doctor therapist. Then the choice that we gave was, anybody knows where they are? I'm sure you can identify at least 2 or 3. Anybody want to know? I usually have a gift. And whoever get the right answers the most, I give something. But I don't have any gift today. But anybody want to guess where they are? Where? Very close. Very close. I think he is talking about this one. It's very close. That's Copenhagen, Denmark. Any other guess?
Top left is New York City, right?
You got it. That's Times Square. That's 1 point. Any other guess?
Middle left is Osaka, Japan.
It's close enough. Tokyo. Close enough, Tokyo. That's good. I'll take it. Any others? I think you will know at least one place. This is the popular one. Peru, Machu Picchu, Peru. So New York, Denmark, Colorado, Norway, and Tokyo, Czech Republic. Then people always ask me, okay, how did you choose these photos? Any scientific reason to pick? No, I just chose these photos based on where I wanted to go and where I went in the past. But day two, 5 minutes warming up, 65% of VO2 max speed to run for 20 minutes. Then here is the autonomy comes in. So if you are in the choice group, you choose 5 preferred photo out of 10. Then you also decide the order, which order you want to see while you're running. Treadmill, a huge screen in front of your treadmill, and you just run while watching the screen. And again, half of you pick the photo that you like. People have a weird reason to pick. Oh, I like cities, I'm going to pick cities. I like natures, I'm going to pick natures. Or I like, this is really pretty, I'm going to, it's like, we didn't really correct the reason they picked, but you get the idea. Then what we found, this is only day two. Day one, there was no difference between the two groups. And what we found was for the heart rate, that's on day two, heart rate. This is choice group, and this is from 1 minute to 5 minutes, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, and 16 to 20. And what we found was people who were able to choose what they like to see, they had slightly lower heart rate. But again, running at the exact same intensity. And how about the oxygen consumption? Same thing, choice group has a little bit lower value. So, and question is, what does that really mean? So, choice group showed the lower oxygen consumption and heart rate, compared with the control group. Then, if you think about the fact that they could run at lower heart rate, lower oxygen consumption, that's really economical. If you think of, because if you're going to run, our heart rate is going to be increased. I'm guessing now, I think my heart is maybe the highest, maybe 90, somewhere around maybe 100 because I'm speaking. But because you're sitting, I'm guessing your heart is somewhere around 60, 50, somewhere around, maybe 70, okay? So the providing performance, the opportunity for small choices, in this case, the selection pictures enable them to run more economically. Now let's talk about my third study. I'm gonna go very quick. And this was published in Psychological Research. This is the task. Task was plantar flexion. It's just only this like a feet movement. That's it. Then to long story, make it very short. So they were going to match I would say the requested force, 80%, 50%, 20%. Then we asked them to keep either 80 or 50 or 20 for 10 seconds, and they had number of tries to complete. Then choice group were able to choose what target they want to go first, either 50, 80, could be 20, and for the control, I would say, condition, we decide the order for them. And what we found was they were able to produce exact same amount of torque, no difference between the two conditions. But for the EMG activity, people who were able to choose the order had slightly lower EMG activity. Means they didn't need to recruit, I would say, or they didn't need to activate muscle as much as they needed to do compared with the control condition. So again, choice and control condition produce similar torque, similar power, but choice condition showed slightly lower EMG activity related to the control condition. Then providing performance opportunity for small choices, in this case the order of torque, was I guess helpful for them to perform a little bit more economically because they use a little bit less muscle to do the same amount of work. So this is my PhD work. In case you're kind of curious, if you type, maybe my name, my dissertation, then it will pop up. How about pressure situation? Because I'm sure that's something I think some of you are working on. I was kind of curious how choice influence our performance when pressure is on. So this is how we conducted this experiment. So for the first 10 trials, we asked them to use only blue, and they perform using non-dominant hand. And next 10 only red, next 10 only yellow. Then we divided into two different groups, choice and also control. So for the choice group, they were able to choose the color and they could also switch if they wanted to. And for the control group, we just basically gave them the color that they have to use. Retention test, we didn't see any difference between the two, but for the transfer situation, or I guess the pressure transfer, so the way we gave pressure was we basically told them we are going to record, which we did. And I think we also told them we are possibly going to show your performance to students. I don't remember exactly how we did it, okay? But when they didn't practice, that's 6.5 meter, then we saw some differences. But I also need to say, follow-up study, I conducted exactly same study using golf putting task, not throwing task. We didn't see anything. And we just couldn't publish this paper because people don't like this one. It's like, there's no significant difference between the two. It's tough to publish. But sometimes there is no difference. And I'm going to talk about why choice is good a little bit later. So, but people like choice, okay? Let's talk about expectation. How to make stress your friends. This is kind of unique talk. Anybody has seen this talk before? This is kind of unique one, okay? So she kind of talks about, top causes of death in the US, heart disease and cancers, Alzheimer. Number 15, stress belief. If you think stress is bad for yourself, for your health, you're more likely to die. So she talks about, how psychological factors influence us, how that increase, the likelihood of death. Okay, I'm like, okay, I get it. Mindset is important, and this is kind of interesting study. So people who work at hotel, guess what they do? Anybody want to guess? People who work at the hotel, what do they actually do? They do something to make money, right? What do they do? Anybody want to guess?
They are going to stay in the hotel.
Okay, they are going to stay at the hotel. Okay, any others? What do? They clean. They make beds. They move around. And it's kind of exercise. And there are two different groups. Then one group of hotel workers were told, oh, basically what you're doing is exercise. Okay. And the other one group, they were not basically being told anything. They just work at the hotel. Then what they found was people who were taught what you're doing is actually exercise. That led to reduce weight and improve body composition. Okay, I'm like, okay. Then, this is a milkshake. Then, if you guess how much calorie, about maybe 600 calories. So, one group of participants, they got basically milkshake. Okay, this is, it's a little small, but okay, 620 calories. There you go. Okay, that's great. And the other group, they got exactly the same milkshake, but slightly different label. Okay, 140 calories, there you go. Okay, what they found was people who had a less, it's not actually less, perceived less calorie. So mind over milkshake. Perception of less calorie led to feel, quickly feel hungry. So, hopefully I kind of gave you idea, mindset is something to think about. Then how about motor performance and also motor learning? And this is a very simple task. So again, same as the previous study that I talked about using hand grip dynamometer. So hold 25% of your maximum force production as long as you can for 2 trials. It's a little bit different than the previous study, but basically if I ask you to perform 100, like your max, I will know you have 25%. Then I'm going to ask you to hold at 25% of your max as long as you can. Okay? And assume everyone actually perform one time. Then after that, they were divided into 3 different groups. One, high efficacy group. So I'm going to tell you your performance are in the top 10. You could hold a lot longer than others. You probably feel really good about yourself. Then if you are in the low self-efficacy group, right after you perform, your performance was not good. Your performance is in the bottom 10. Then last group, they were not told anything. Then they performed one more trial just to see, if they could improve score or not. Maybe you guessed it. So this is the time. The longer they could hold, it's technically better for this task. For the control, they dropped a little bit. For the second trial, they dropped again. Then for the high self-efficacy group, they were told, oh, your performance is really great. They did better. Okay? So confidence goes up and force production sustained, or I could say maybe increased a little bit. Then this is my study that I conducted. I think that was maybe first year, second year as an assistant professor. Because, I worked on autonomy support. I'm like, I want to do something else. This is kind of interesting study, I think. So assume you're actually going to participate in this study, then you're going to use a non-dominant hand. Then you're going to just simply throw a ball, and you want to get 10. And this is going to be 1. If you didn't hit, that means you don't get any points. Then we had 2 different groups. So the definition of success, I'm going to tell you, okay, if you hit 9 or 10, that specific chart, I'm going to consider success. Then you're going to practice, knowing that either 9 or 10 is going to be successful for you. Then the other group, I basically told participants, you hit more than 6, that specific trial is going to be successful. Then they perform like 72 trials. Then what we found was people who were told more than 6 is successful. So this is the accuracy score. Relatively easy criteria, that's how we perceive. So people could hit sort of success score between 6 to 10, about 50%. If you perform twice, that means one of the 2, you get more than 6. That's the level of difficulty that participants had. Then what we found was, so this is difficult criteria. They only had like 1 success try out of 10 because getting 10 or 9 was really difficult. Like 6 meter, the little target is difficult. And what we found was people who were told getting more than 6 is successful actually had a higher learning outcome. Then the following study we conducted was, so this was the better group. Then following study we conducted, okay, I get it. 9 was not good, 6 was good because people could feel they actually did better. Because if you actually perform under 9, definition of success is 9, you constantly get idea that you're not doing good enough because you can't get more than 9 or 10. You only get 1 time out of 10. Then, okay, how about 9, 6? 6 was good. How about if we added one more group, 3? Because, okay, I get it. More success is good. How about if we try to actually create situation where people are going to be really successful because task is easy? How does that influence? Then what we found was, again, more than 9, more than 6, more than 3. And we also included control group. We didn't tell them anything, just to see how it goes. And what we found was, again, the higher value means better accuracy. And this is the relatively easy criteria for success. So if, when people practice under, I would say, more than 3 to be successful, they perform, or their success rate was like 85. It's like no matter what they perform, they're going to hit within the success range. It's not maybe challenging enough. More than 6 was the best compared with other groups. This is a little bit slightly different approach to talk about expectation. So far, we talked about how sort of positive feedback influence learning outcome or performance, and also how different definition of success influence motor performance and learning. And this is the opposite one. Then I think this isn't really popular in Japan, but in some countries, like say Iran, women or girls don't play sports. And it used to be the same thing in the US or Japan. Okay, women's, you don't play sports, you cook. Or you stay at home, that's all you want to do, okay? But that's really not the case right now. But, play like a girl. So if you say, okay, you play, throw a ball like a girl, it's kind of the awkward way. But, okay, throw a ball like your sister, you actually perform. So, but again, this negative stereotype is really big. If women think, okay, I'm not good enough, then performance is going to be really degraded. Then in the US, obesity rate is crazy. 36, it's a little bit old data, but you see this rate, it's just increasing rapidly. Anybody want to guess obesity rate in Japan? What percent obesity rate in Japan? US, 30%, or a little more, 35%. How about Japan? 3%? Any other guess? Nice guess. 3%. Okay? Then I don't want to actually do these types of study, but the researcher invited only, I guess, obesity people. And they divide into 2 different groups. And one group of participants, they were told, because you're obese, I don't think you're going to perform this task well. That's kind of mean. That's kind of mean. And the other group, they are not told anything. Then people who are told, because you're obese, I don't think you will perform well. And they didn't. And, they also assessed the reason why they didn't enjoy. They don't want to put effort because they are told obese people are not going to do well. And they had no confidence. Then I think this is also a really classic study. Women who are going to take math exam. And they're from Harvard University. But they get one question before taking math test. Are you female? Then you take math. Or are you Harvard student? You take exam. Then people who were asked what university they attend are supposed to whether male or female. And people who were asked whether they went to Harvard, increased math tests, because in the US, I don't know if it's in Japan, but female or girl are not good at math. Boys are good at math. So we have that like a negative stereotype. So again, simply implied negative stereotype influence performance. Then I'm going to show you 3 photos, and I'm going to let you guess what these, sort of characters or, 3 combination of 3 can do. Women can do, not really can do. Women are not good at based on what Americans said. No, I didn't say it. Okay? And elderly population, Asian. If you have these 3 combination, people at least in the US think you can't do or you're not good at something. Anybody want to guess? This powerful combination.
Driving?
Yes, good. Because if you go to the US, you say you're from Japan, oh, you're Asian, you don't drive. Okay, but so if you think that's really the case, there is a chance your driving skill is gonna be off because you really pay attention to what you're actually doing and you believe you're maybe not good enough. And this is one study that I conducted with a PhD student from Iran. So again, in Iran, women don't really play sports. Not all the time, but some areas not really. Then he told one group of participants, oh, women are not good at playing sports, or specifically showing men's doing really great compared with women, like in soccer. Then stereotype threat means we basically can't tell them, ooh, you're not good enough. Then null field stereotype, we didn't tell them anything. And what we found was, I'm gonna go kind of quick, but people who were told, ooh, you're not good enough, they actually did not learn motor skills. And we kind of combine these two. So far we talked about choice and also expectation. Okay, I get it, choice is good, expectation is good. How about if we combine two? He also worked on this project. He's one of my PhD students. Easy choice. And we told participants, okay, getting more than 3 is successful. And I think the choice was like something like related to the color ball. And what we found was people who were able to choose preferred ball and were told more than 3 to be successful, they had the highest learning score compared with only autonomy or only expectation, and also more than control. And this is just my study, or the study that my PhD student conducted. There are a lot of studies talking about the same point. This one, we also combined multiple factors, and participants were like elderly population trying to learn the balance task. I also wrote one review because after the COVID-19, I couldn't collect any data. I'm like, I gotta do something. Then I decided to write review talking about how maybe esports learners can enhance, I guess, the way they learn esports. Then today I talked about specifically 2 factors, talking about autonomy, expectation, and in case you're curious, I kind of suggest this review. So this was published in 2016 and already getting more than 1,000 citations. That's a lot. That is a lot. So she was my advisor, and she gets like citation, like 2,500 every year. That's a lot. So in case you're curious, I'm not even close. Only 400 so far. Okay. The question we always wonder is, okay, choice is good, expectation is good. Question is why? Right? I mean, if you conduct the research, okay, you found something. Okay, this is very good. What you want to know next is why. I'll give you some idea. Personal choice is rewarding. Okay, great. And if you choose, you are going to actually like the option that you choose more. personal choice facilitate motivation and also performance, increase motivation, mood, happiness, perceived competence, and you enjoy more. You also increase your confidence on self-efficacy by having option, and you feel like you can control the situation. Autonomy is one of the three basic psychological needs. The other one is competence. The other one is also social factor, like people who are around you kind of should be supportive. How about expectation? Self-efficacy, confidence, or expectation is closely related to motor performance. I mean, we study sports psychology. I think this is really known fact. And expecting to perform well has a strong relationship with performing well under pressure situation. And when expectation increases, anxiety decreases. So again, this is also, I would say, basic psychological need. We like to feel we are good at something, and we like to expect we are going to actually perform well. And I'm going to kind of talk about kind of two, I would say, neurophysiological factors. Then I'm not really expert in, I would say, neuroscience, but from neuroscience perspective, choice and also expectation actually have a same impact, because they couldn't really differentiate how choice and also expectation influence differently. So choice or anticipation, choice is associated with greater activity in brain region that are involved in reward processing, positive effect, and motivation. Then anticipation, choice, even if you anticipate, choice is going to be provided. I guess that is associated with dopamine release. And more effective movement is associated with dopamine responses, which was also supported by, I would say, individual with Parkinson's disease. Placebo enhanced excitability of corticospinal system and the force level. This is really not the type of study that I conduct, but I guess the reason why maybe two psychological factors were helpful. And this one, I'm not gonna really talk with detailed information, but in case you're curious, how self-talk influence closed self-paced motor tasks, like for example, golf putting task, throwing task, anything closed task. It was published as a book chapter. And APA asked me to write another book chapter, so this is going to be published maybe like in 2 months. Again, another self-talk. And this one, again, self-talk, but in the area of self-talk, often instruction self-talk, motivation self-talk, often they're compared, and I kind of wonder which is more effective. Then I don't know anything about meta-analysis, but my collaborator knows so much about meta-analysis, so they're doing all the, I guess, heavy work. These are my, I guess, mentors for my PhD experiment. And my PhD student, researcher from US, Japan, Czech, my undergrad student, folks who work on my meta-analysis, and folks from my study abroad program. So maybe you in the future. Only one slide to conclude my talk, because I technically have 3 minutes to go. So I think this is great. Really the question is who cares and why I think this is kind of important. So I have 3 points to make. The one, providing choice is more important than what people usually think of. And today I gave you a lot of different studies to kind of talk about how choice, even subtle, small choice, influence the way we learn and also the way we perform, including exercise engagement. I think I talked about one study that increased exercise engagement. And when if you think about, say, no choice, you only do what you're told to do, that's really not ideal, I would say, situation for success. And the second one that I talked about was enhancing expectation by giving positive feedback or giving relatively easy criteria, not really difficult criteria to start. I think that's very important. If you expect you're not going to do well, then research also suggests you're probably not going to do well. Not all the time. Then the last one is the psychological approach offers, I guess, different advantages. It's important for athletes, coaches, teachers, clinicians, and maybe so much more. So thank you so much. In case you're curious, my book. So I was asked by, I guess, one of the book publishers to write how to write research paper in English. So it's going to be published in maybe 3 months, but by Dr. Yotsuki. But other than that, thank you so much. That's all I have.